There's a saying out there and it goes, to the tune of what you are is God's gift to you and what you make of it is your gift to God. Honestly, I think about that every day because, if I am the representative of God in my life, I have a duty to impact as many people as I can, get out of my own way because I get in front and get in my way, and be as efficient with my time as possible because we only have so much time. And that really helps me, get back on track and focus on the right things.
Welcome to the Driven Woman podcast, where career and business women operating in traditionally male-dominated spaces come for advanced conversations to accelerate their journey towards success. You'll be inspired to abandon old paradigms around money, influence, lifestyle, and achievement so that you can create your own rules. I'm your host, Sophia Bryan, international lawyer and leadership coach for women. Are you ready to unleash the leader within? Let's get into today's episode. This episode is brought to you by the Driven Woman Leadership Circle. This is for women who have arrived at the place in their life and leadership journey where they recognize that they could use some additional support. However, you may not be at the place where you are ready to invest in private one-on-one mentorship. So the membership for the Driven Woman Leadership Circle allows you to receive trainings that will propel you to the next level while experiencing coaching within a group setting. To learn more about the Driven Woman Leadership Circle private membership, you may go to the show notes. And I also invite you to visit my Facebook group. Join me over there. So it's facebook.com/Driven Woman Leadership Circle. And you'll also have an opportunity to learn more about the training opportunities. And you will also get to experience the community that I am gradually building over there. P.S. If you love the show and you would like an opportunity to become one of our production partners, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Sophia Bryan. And if you visit the show notes, you'll also see other ways that you can become one of our production partners. Hey there, Driven Woman. We have another amazing guest, and I am super excited to bring this guest to you because she's super impressive, as all my guests are. She started her real estate company at the age of 19. I bet you want to hear how she pulled that off. She now guides female change makers all over the globe to discover their inner freedom and fulfillment using the Inside Out Success method in her Premier Consulting program. Her inspiration fueling every pursuit has been to simplify success, shine a light on the truth of whatever may be in the way of it, and to show others they can do anything they set their mind to. I love that. Driven Women, make way for my guest, Stacy Bahrenfuss. Did I get it right?
Close enough.
Okay. All right. So glad to have you on here, Stacy. So I love for my guests to share what their childhood was like and how that has played into what they're currently doing.
Yes. Ooh, I love this. Such a great topic to start with because, as you know, what happens between, the ages of 0 and 7, it makes the most impression on us, so that's the most impact on us. So I grew up in a household that I was, started as an only child, and then my father was remarried when I was 6. And I stepped into the role at that point of being, the responsible one, the oldest. I had 2 brothers and just really was, the person that everyone kind of leaned on. I always say it was my job to bring the chaos to order. And that early responsibility, while, you can always take two different paths with what happens to us. It's really helped shape who I am. And I think the ability to, start my company at a young age was absolutely related to, those early responsibilities growing up.
Okay, excellent. What gave you the impetus at 19? Yes, you had a lot of responsibilities growing up, but was it that entrepreneurial bug that bit you? Was it just running with an idea? What happened for you to have the confidence to feel as though you could actually start a company at such a young age?
Yes, and it's funny, the memory that always pops into my head is I was about 5 years old, and this story directly relates to that confidence. I was about 5, and I was completely bundled up in a snowsuit, and I had my mittens on, and I was curious if the stove was on. And instead of asking, I just went and put my hand on the stove, and the stove was on, and it burnt through my mitten and just, barely hit my palm. And I think that's such a great example of my life, because I'm very much one where someone could tell me all day long not to do something or to do something, and I have to experience it on my timeline and my way. And so I think that just that attitude of what's the worst that can happen if you try it has been through and through in every situation in my life, it seems like.
I love that. Okay. I noticed that you have actually worked with Tony Robbins. Well, not worked with, but been a part of his circle or one of his programs in the past. What was that experience like for you?
Yes. So it was so profound in many ways. And, I think the understanding and just the teachings that he has, the power you truly have, and the ability to, understand your state, understand, that you can take control of these things, was really interesting, almost like that next step in my life. So I really enjoyed, his business mastery event, and of course the life and wealth mastery. That was one of the best ones. I was a heavy coffee drinker, and they put you through a cleanse while you're there. And
wow, okay.
I ended up going cold turkey and having a lot of blemishes on my face that first day. So it was, very memorable, but just, I think the cleansing aspect and, replanting the right programs was like the biggest takeaway.
You speak a lot about inner state and the idea of controlling your inner state and recognizing its influence on your work. Did that idea or concept come from your time working with Tony Robbins, or was it another life experience that led you to design your program in that way?
Yeah, so my experience, it actually started also at a young age. But of course, Tony's perspective on state is very much about, that performance aspect and peak performance, and almost, more of that like masculine side, and the side that I'm bringing, to the marketplace and to people is more of that feminine side, because especially as women, we have so much power, but the, society or programs have us in shackles. We have ourselves in shackles, and really boils down to resistance of, we don't think we should feel a certain way, or there's guilt because we're, we have kids at home, but we want to pursue our career, or vice versa. There's a lot of those things that go on for women. And so when you can really see the truth of that state and the resistance you're experiencing, that's where freedom can come about, so that you can perform like Tony speaks about, right? That peak state. But first you have to see the truth of where you are. So of course, it's a combination of life experience, but the methodology really came about from the struggles that I had in my life and the system I built for myself personally and professionally.
Okay. I'm happy you mentioned women because one of my key questions that I want to ask is why women? I don't know if you want to elaborate some more on why, having a real estate company, then deciding that you want to have programs that are geared specifically towards helping women.
Yes. Yeah, that's such a great question. So, over the course of my career, I've had both men and women on my real estate team, as agents and team members. And what I found myself spending the most time on with both was the interstate and digging up these things that were hindering their performance in some way. It wasn't ever tactical. And so as I reflected and also looked at the times that I experienced the most joy and fulfillment because I was seeing this other person thrive and have those ahas, I realized it's not real estate related at all. It's work. And so the focus, for women is, something that I think really shifted for me even in the last couple of years as far as focus of how I wanted to bring this, to the world. And the reason is because, in my journey, I really experienced that peak performance, masculine, do side. That was second nature to me, and how I was raised. And when I started to really step into my power as a woman by clearing these, the shoulds or the, must do, it made me realize how underserved, this part of the market is, just in the sense that I think women have different aspects going on. Men still struggle with similar things, and we're not leaving them out by any means, but women have such a complex makeup where they're, used to taking care of everyone except themselves. They may put themselves, last. There's a lot of common threads that make it complicated and could really, use the compassion and awareness through a program like this, seeing the truth and it being okay to, see the truth and then build a life you love.
So the concept of being a magnet for opportunities, I love that. Can you share with the listeners some of the things that they can do to become magnet for opportunities? There is this debate between whether success has anything to do with luck or is it hard work? And you're saying it's not just about do. But then I think a lot of people have an issue with whether or not your success is dependent on luck. So what are the things does one become a magnet for opportunities?
Yes, I love that question so much. So the first thing that you can do is if you look at the areas in your life that are not working, you have a challenge in that maybe you feel like you can't overcome, or it's something that keeps repeating itself. Sometimes in life we have, one problem and then it shows up in a different mask next year. So if you can look at the areas of your life that you're, either facing something or, are struggling in some way, or it's not to the standard or to the level rather that you want, ask yourself what resistance is currently present, because that's what you can trace it back to. You can trace it back to, and I'll give you an example. If you have a relationship that isn't thriving the way that you want, there may be resistance to something that you feel about yourself or you're not providing to yourself. Therefore, you're blaming the other person. You're not giving it to you. So if you can first look at these areas that aren't working Then see, step 2, see what resistance is currently there and just be truthful to yourself. You don't need to go and stand on a stage admitting this.
You don't need to go to Tony Robbins' event.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to go to an event, especially now. Better safe. If you can just be really honest with yourself and see that truth, then what that does is it allows you to build whatever you want to build, whether it's in your business or in a relationship, from a calm and clear state. And when you build a category in your life, category of your life, we're all from that place. What happens is everything in life, the universe, goes crazy to support your efforts because you're valuable to the nature, the universe, because you're not bringing forth your chaos. You're looking at the chaos and you're showing up in the world truly as a magnet because you're not, polarized by the stuff you're carrying around. Because that's really what slows us down is the stories and hurts or whatever, from the past.
I love that so much because I'm sitting here thinking about the whole idea of resistance, and it can be multifaceted because it can come from, your interactions with your family and how you're perceived there. It can come from, your relationships with your friends or your environment, your physical environment. And, areas of resistance popped up in my mind. But I understand the concept, but I don't know. Can you expound more upon the idea of resistance and what that actually is? Because I think that sometimes there's a bit of confusion behind the idea of resistance, what that really means.
Yes. Yeah. So an example of resistance is I feel hurt by someone and I say I'm too busy to feel this hurt and I go back to my work.
Yes.
Or another example would be, going and treating myself to a spa day. And while I'm doing that, feeling like I should do something else, which we can all relate to, right? It's like, oh, I have this much to do. Just that simple resistance. All you have to do is see, I'm resisting this gift that I'm giving myself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's see what else this could be affecting, more about like curiosity about the resistance versus being wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It's an invitation to question, why am I doing the things that I do that are not helping me get to where I actually want to get? Yeah, or what areas am I not being fully present or fully embracing the issue or the moment that's presented before me, so, you're at work thinking about home. When you're home, you're thinking about work, kind of a thing. So yeah, thanks for expounding upon that. I wanted to know, what your thoughts are on the implication that our personal relationships have on our ability to become successful.
It is everything. I mean, I think especially as women, we need extra support and we're not conditioned to provide ourselves even just the basic level of support, and so I really think that, making sure that your personal relationships are supporting who you are today and they're not stale is because you may have met friends or even your partner, years ago where you were in a different place. And, if they're not growing with you, that can make huge implications on success, almost, act as a weight around, as you're trying to soar. And so I think that's one aspect. And, I think that the ability to have strong relationships, not only externally, but that relationship with ourselves. And, if I think about, mental wellness and, depression and anxiety being, two of the major players, they're not, of course, not all of the players, but, so much of those challenges come from our inner dialogue with ourselves. And so I just really think, the more light we can shine on that, the stronger and more empowered that we can become to set that right.
Nice. Can one really become stress-free? Because I can't imagine that, but you're a proponent of the concept of being stress-free, and it's something that's attainable. How do we get there to this state of being stress-free?
Yeah. So I always think of, being stress-free as there's a challenge and there is the story that then goes along with it, which often makes us experience the challenge multiple times.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about, succeeding without stress, it's succeeding without that internal dialogue that we've talked about so far. But it's also about looking at the facts of the situation or challenge versus internalizing it and beating yourself up or, overanalyzing. There's all of these different things that we do. And so when you can separate yourself from the story and just look at the facts, the challenge is the challenge, and the stress and the story is what you can clear and choose to experience something different, because that's internal.
So it has a lot to do with, goes back to the conversations that we have with ourselves. What are some of the things that you do to stay in a state of abundance and recognizing that there is a need that you are fulfilling, and to not get discouraged by external things like a pandemic, for example, or all the things that encourage us to be scarcity minded in this time?
Yes, this is such a great topic. I think that the very first thing that I do is commit to checking myself when things come up like that. And the way that I do that is I ask myself, am I focusing on contribution and serving the other, or am I focused on myself? Because if I'm in scarcity or fear, that's self-centric thinking.
Yeah.
And so that realization of, I'm completely obsessed with how this is going to affect me, that elevates my consciousness to be able to look at the situation from, 30,000 feet instead of being in it.
Yeah.
I think really looking at staying connected to the solution that you're bringing to the market.
Yes.
And how important that is. The way that I do that is, just that reminder of there's a saying out there and it goes, to the tune of what you are is God's gift to you, and what you make of it is your gift to God.
I love that. That's, okay. Yes.
And I think, I think about that every day because, if I am the representative of God in my life, I have a duty to impact as many people as I can, get out of my own way, because I get in front and get in my way, and be as efficient with my time as possible, because we only have so much time. And that really helps me, get back on track and focus on the right things.
Are there any daily rituals that you practice that help you to stay in that state of abundance?
Definitely continuing to focus on it sounds so simple when I say this, but what I want and desire instead of what I don't want. It's so easy, to wake up in the morning and think about the to-do list and, the little things, and that constant focus on what I want and really meditating on that and reflecting on that is so important to really, ingrain that, implement it, and integrate it to myself and study it every day so that it becomes a reality.
So there are quite a few people that they've had to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. So, they know what it is to live in a state of scarcity, not by their own choice, but, this is something that they were brought into. And then they, through hard work and being a magnet for opportunities, they've amassed wealth, they started to get more abundant, but there is this cognitive dissonance between, what they were brought up in to what they've managed to achieve. And sometimes they sabotage their newfound abundance. What are some of the things that someone like that can do? Because I imagine that you encounter those personalities from time to time. What can they do to not mess up what they've worked so hard for?
Yes, that good old cognitive dissonance, isn't it? It's so fascinating, just the mind and, understanding that it's here to keep us safe, not to be happy. I think that the most important thing to realize is that it is your responsibility to draw a line in the sand. You can do as many, personal development seminars or books or readings, but if you do not make the decision to stop playing out and participating in that story, there's nothing else that can change that except you.
Yeah.
And so I think really understanding that there is a choice today because you've now created your life thus far. And there is a choice to truly build the life that you want. I think that decision, while it seems so simple, it's the biggest, most important thing. If you decide that, no more, you're going to, get in your own way or participate in the story, then you can come from a place of true, empowerment and 100% responsibility for your life to then build upon that.
Nice. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the fact that you actually personally funded and sold a development project. So I've been a part of a construction project in the past, and I know how intense that can be from that experience. But you need to talk to me about that, because what was the experience like for you? What were some of the challenges that you encountered, and how did you overcome some of these challenges with this development project?
Yes. Oh my gosh. There were more gems, diamonds in the rough in this one than I could have ever dreamt of. It's funny. I look back on it now and I'm just like, why did I think doing that project was like my next step of evolution and growth? I'm sure there was something less I could have done. I'm like, talk about cognitive dissonance. No. Anyway, the biggest things, that it reinforced were that we truly, if we decide, as people that we can do anything and really consider, okay, what resources do I have? Anything is possible. And there were, multiple times in the project that, I had issues with the lenders involved, and, they weren't wiring the funds to pay contractors when it was needed and what was agreed upon. And I was challenged to, come up with, it was more than $200,000 to make this work. And it's funny because it was this time last year. So I'm very happy. I'm like, I thought I was doing this on Thanksgiving this year.
Oh, wow.
But in that situation, just to explain it a little bit, because it's applicable to other areas and anyone can do this, is like, I have this challenge. And of course, I spent a couple days appalled and freaked out. And of course, stressed of like, what am I going to do? And then I sat down and made a list of all of the ways I could come up with this money, from other people I knew to calling banks. I mean, I had about 36 options when I brain dump. And I ended up just calling different people. And my aunt in Florida that I didn't talk to very much, she was looking for a rental. And so she was like, I actually want to buy one of these houses and rent it out.
Wow.
And so it ended up taking a turn that I couldn't have imagined, but it was through that process of, brainstorming and asking myself, how can I complete this versus this is happening to me?
Yes.
And it's, that change. The other thing that was really challenging for me was, I've been in real estate. It was 13 years when I started the project, and the market was super hot. It's still super hot. The homes are beautiful. They're priced right, and they weren't selling. And then the pandemic hit. And I was like, okay, I have been in this business for so long. I've, made sure everything makes sense. I'm not going to get caught up in this, like this is not going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it just taught me so much about another level of faith in myself that, if stuff doesn't happen exactly according to plan, I have bet on myself. And at the end of the day, that's not ever going to break. And I think that, that's what carried me through, is just remembering that. But it was a wild ride, carrying the cost of the development and also running my real estate team. It definitely went down a path I was not expecting, but it truly was, one of the biggest gifts that I've had in my life because of those challenges. It's hard to, see that when you're in it, but if you just keep believing and, I reminded myself of like what I'm made of, what I stand for, and that I'm just going to take it day by day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, the mere fact that you even conceptualize the idea of building luxury homes, it's like it was an indication that you were meant to be able to do this. You did have the capacity. And I'm so happy that you stuck it through it, The real estate development market, the luxury apartment market is quite hot in Jamaica as well. Right now, really, really hot. As a matter of fact, quite a few developers are selling their houses or their apartments in US dollars, right? And I'm talking about as much as 1 million US dollars. Yeah. So it's always been something that I've been extremely intrigued about. I do see myself doing that one day. So I'm so happy that you were able to share that story. While we're still on the topic of housing, real estate, do you have any tips for first-time homeowners as well as persons who are seeking to do their own project?
Yes. That advice is, if it's your first time, purchasing a home or, a piece of dirt, don't be afraid to reach out to a lender or someone that is an expert in that field now versus waiting, because so often people think they have to have, X amount of a down payment, or they need to, do all of these things. And especially at a time where interest rates are incredibly low, you either will get approved for the loan or you will be able to create a plan to get approved down the road. So it's a win either way.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I think there's so many people that are interested in building or developing in that world. And it's definitely, there's a lot to it, but if you do your, research and get a team of your experts in like each department, get an engineer, get, an architect, builder, get that team lined up, and collectively you can truly pursue a project that would work, but always, figure it's going to take longer. And
yes.
So always figure that.
Thank you for saying that, because I was saying to a friend of mine the other day, I'm like, I wish people would stop shaming young people for not purchasing a home immediately or taking that on as a an adult goal, because there are so many steps.
Yeah.
Oh my God. From the perspective of buying as well as from the perspective of selling, there are so many steps and there are so many people involved. And it's like this ripple effect. You need one person to do their job, then you need another person to do their job in order for you to do what you need to do. So it's a process, it's this symbiotic relationship. So it's not totally dependent on the individual. I think we should, instead of shaming people about not buying a house first, the conversation should be, these are the things that you should have in place, like what you said, for the day to come when you are ready to purchase a home. These are the steps that you need to take, because chances are it's going to take a lot longer than you imagined.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Interestingly, I just finished doing some work for a really good friend of mine who is going into the development space. So I prepared quite a few of the contracts that he's going to need for his project. And his project he's thinking 5 years down the road. So he's getting himself organized. He already has his team in place, and came to me, he's like, Sophia, I need these contracts to be done. And I'm like, this is how you do it.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah, this is how it should be done. So I'm so happy you shared that tip, that insight of, yeah, more powerful than you probably think right now. I've had the opportunity to interact with your assistant, and I realized that she's on it. She's super responsive and super efficient. And I know for a lot of female entrepreneurs, finding the right team is often a challenging process. So what recommendations do you have? Is there a system that you have in place where selecting your team is concerned?
Yes. Oh gosh, this is, I love this topic. It's just stumbling over my words because I just love it so much, because it honestly has been the hardest part about running my business over the last, 14 years. And I would hire fast and, just wasn't wrapping my head around the process. So this last year, I really buckled down on what it is exactly that I want and those expectations.
Yeah.
And, the biggest thing that I found that was a great starting point was how you post your jobs positions that are open. And what I did was I required that they send a video along with their resume. And I remember for my assistant, that Donna's position that you worked with, I had 84 applicants and only four had sent the video as I had.
Are you kidding me? Like, seriously?
Yes, 4.
Wow.
And so just having those kind of high expectations on the front end feeds out so many people. And so that would be, the first thing. The other thing is I always ask for 5 references.
Okay.
And then I ask those references if they know anyone else that I should talk to.
Okay.
just asking, another level there.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the last thing, of course, not the last thing, there's a lot of little things, but I think the weekly check-ins on progress
Yeah.
has been another thing that is just so instrumental because you can catch things as you're dealing with them instead of, going months and months because we're all so busy and then they're unhappy. You're really not that thrilled and then it ends badly.
Yeah, those are quite thorough, and especially the idea of actually contacting the references because I feel like we fall off
Yes.
where the reference checks are concerned. So you're like 5 references, and also find out if there's anyone else that these references know that could speak to this person's character. So I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And get their email addresses too, so that you can email them a fillable PDF so that you don't have to call each one as a backup.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So Stacy, do you have a favorite book right now? Are you reading anything right now that inspires you?
Yes. I'm reading the Practice by Seth Godin.
Okay.
It's his new book, and I just love his perspective on marketing and life. So I'm enjoying that. And I just recently read the 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma, which was like poetry. He has a beautiful approach to the words and the flow of his language in his books. So that was an easy read too.
Okay, I need to check those out. Especially, I'm happy that you mentioned Seth Godin because that was a reminder for me to check out his work. I remember watching this video that he did once where he was like, I really don't believe in authenticity because not every space requires it. So the example he gave was like, if I hire you to do a particular project, I really don't want to know what happened with your babysitter or what happened at home. I just want you to show up and do your job. So, I really like that perspective because sometimes we bring, or baggage might not be the right word, but we bring our stuff to situations that don't require it. And so if we're being authentic, you go to work and like, oh, you had a crappy morning, and then you come to work with, oh my God, I had such a crappy morning or whatever. You're being authentic, but you're not doing your job or you're not effective. So I was like, okay, that's another way to think about this topic. Yeah.
Yes, and his book, The Practice, it's all about being focused on the practice, what you do every day versus goal. And it was just a refreshing approach because I think we all have a good handle on the goal and the outcome we're after. And it's easy to get off track that your practice and your daily efforts are absolutely supporting that.
Okay. I'm going to ask another question, which is maybe a bit weird. So a lot of women leaders, especially with the conversation about that's happening globally about feminism, is it actually serving women and being objectified? And so persons struggle with the idea of looking a certain way or exploring fashion. What would you say to someone like that may be resistant to being pretty or being called beautiful because they feel as though that takes away from the value that they're adding? I don't know if this is a conversation you've ever had to have, or is it something you had to do with yourself about, looking a certain way, will it detract from person receiving me in a professional sense?
Yeah. So I think that it's such a great topic because I think that there are those that almost rely on that too heavily and then bring in the action. But I think that, I go back to this saying again with everything in my life. It's like everything you are is a gift.
Yes.
And if you go into a negotiation or business dealing and someone is focused so much on your appearance, don't let that get you off track. In fact, I think it's in Seth's book, and don't quote me on that though.
Yeah.
But it was something like, if you were singing in the choir and the guy next to you got off tune, would you stop singing your part? No. And so, and that's not a direct quote.
I know, but yeah, I think I get the concept.
Yeah. And so I think, it's almost easy to allow your beauty to almost like be a victim of it. Like, whoa, like, I get all these comments, I'm beautiful, like I'm more than that. Then show them.
Right.
That's all. Yeah. Show them that you're more than that and step into all of you.
Yes. Your response deserves a snapping of fingers. I think it helps. Why wouldn't you want to do something that helps? Yeah, there are some creepy people out there that are going to be like, oh my God, she's so pretty. But then there are going to be people that just like, appreciate the fact that you took the time to iron your clothes and comb your hair. I mean, yeah. So anyhow.
I love the conversation because I feel like how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you don't, if you're not doing your hair or you're disheveled on a call, we're not saying that you have to be on all the time or be perfect. What we're just saying is, like, people pay attention to that. And if you are disheveled, they are probably going to think, well, is my paperwork going to be messy? Like it does translate.
And I a bit passionate about this area because I've seen where in my own life, I feel as though, like, looking back, I feel as though maybe not prioritizing that as much may have contributed to some opportunities passing me by, because when the visual representation of someone who would have gotten something over me, so that we're on par skill sets, but this person, looked a lot more polished or a lot more put together. And whereas I was just like, just going with the flow, whatever kind of thing. And I've seen where after changing my posture, where that is concerned, and being very intentional about how I want to be perceived, I think it's made a big difference. So yeah, thank you for indulging me on that topic. All right. So Stacy, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. And of course, I want to ask you, what keeps you driven?
Yes. Oh, just the opportunity to wake up tomorrow and be better than I was today. Like, I think we get another opportunity to be at bat, go to swing again and do it better. So that's definitely what drives me.
Thank you. Perfect. So much nuggets of wisdom.
Thank you, Sophia.
You're welcome. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Driven Woman podcast. I encourage you to share it with a friend and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Your reviews allow other driven women to benefit from the amazing conversations that we have over here. Follow the show on Instagram at Driven Woman Podcast and on Twitter at The Driven Woman Show. Until next time, stay driven.